This is not a show and might not even be a connection. Here's Judah and Guest.
And hello, it is Judah and Guest. My guest today is Joshua Blackburn, Captain Blackburn as I like to call him as of late. And we are in our respective undisclosed locations, and we got a little red going on. You got a little yellow and red. I've got a little Christmas, Christmas time action. I'm ready for Christmas.
I'm doing a little pirate radio.
Doing a little pirate radio. And this isn't even a show, but it is a discussion. And one thing I wanted to talk to you about today, wanted to get your take on life after COVID-19. So before we get started, I want to know, man, how was your week?
Helter Skelter.
Helter Skelter.
I'm just all over the place, man.
Is it because things are starting to come, people are starting to come out of the woodwork again, and
it's growth for me. It's growth pains, like trying to grow business and deal with grow it on one hand, deal with issues as they arise in the moment. And so anything anymore, like if I don't put it on my schedule, it doesn't get done because the tyranny of the now just takes over. So I was in Knoxville yesterday and today, just got back. So
Knoxville is the satellite. It's like your sister place where you work, right?
So yeah, we've got 3 practices in East Tennessee, one in Bristol, one in Johnson City, and then an office in Knoxville. Knoxville is just a much bigger city compared to what we call the Tri-Cities, so Kingsport, Johnson City, and Bristol. They're in the upper eastern corner of Tennessee. Knoxville is about an hour and a half farther south.
Okay.
But there's a lot more people in Knoxville.
I see. So it's the big sister.
It's the big sister.
Mothership? Is it the mothership?
Well, actually, the mothership's in Bristol. We kind of try to steer it from up here. The trouble is that doesn't work. I find that trying to train people from a distance is just painful. I'd rather go down there and work face to face with clinicians that I'm onboarding.
Now, do people have difficulty? Do you have to wear a mask? What are the parameters, if you will?
Yeah. So I guess I kind of find myself a little context dependent. When I've been meeting with people, I don't typically wear a mask. However, I went to Walmart this morning. I also went and got a cup of coffee. And I
From
wore
Walmart?
a mask.
Or where did you get the coffee?
Oh, a little coffee shop there in Farragut.
And you have
the west end of Knoxville.
You have to wear a mask when you go into buildings or whatnot?
You don't have to. However, I do kind of fall back on, like, I'm comfortable not wearing a mask. Yeah. However, if I'm going someplace that I don't know who the people are, or it seems like the general tone and practices, there's a bunch of mask-wearing people, I just bust my mask out.
Yeah.
And it's Walmart. I don't know what's going on in Walmart.
Yeah. But you kind of feel it out.
I feel it out. I don't wear it everywhere. I'm not driving around in my truck with a mask on.
Yeah.
But I've got a laptop bag, and
I picture
I've got a mask.
I picture you driving around with windows down, blasting some kind of like banjo music. That's what I picture.
You've known me for a while, and I've had several Ford trucks over my lifetime, and all of them, the air conditioner breaks and the radio goes out. So I generally don't listen to much music, though. I've been feeling a little nostalgic lately, and I've got my trusty iPhone and my trusty earplugs, and I was listening to Caedmon's Call on the drive back from Knoxville. So no, I get my Harry Potter mask on, and
what in the world?
and my glasses fog up. It's great. I try to get this on my wrist.
Harry Potter.
So, I'm trying to think. There's on the Virginia side. No, masks are highly encouraged.
Yeah, it's much more. It's a culture of it's a mask culture out there.
Tennessee is a little bit more. It's the volunteer state, and we don't like to be told what to do. Mm. However, I'll be honest with you. There are consequences to this kind of behavior. For instance, my parents had brought up the idea that we should go to Gatlinburg.
Okay.
And well intended, because Gatlinburg is, there's things to do there. It's a tourist trap. Yeah. And we ultimately decided that probably was not a prudent idea. Well, Monday, I'm talking with one of my clinicians who's planning on going on vacation this coming week. And we're just sort of discussing some of the issues that kind of arise out of that.
Yeah.
And I mentioned Gatlinburg, and she said, did you know that Sevier County, Tennessee is now she quoted it as number 4 by capita in increased COVID cases. It's actually number 5.
Wow.
It's a very tiny county, but the problem is that people have flocked there. And social distancing is gone out the window. So in the course of 2 weeks, they picked up 250 cases.
And so where is that again?
So it's in between the Tri-Cities and Knoxville. It's like Dollywood and that kind of stuff.
What state? I forget what
Tennessee.
Oh, it's in Tennessee. Okay.
Where did you say? Sevier County.
Okay.
Sevier.
Oh, that sounds a little severe.
It is a little severe.
Yeah,
that was right behind Myrtle Beach.
They had 932 cases today. 14 deaths, not too. I mean,
but you got to put it in perspective.
No deaths.
It's a tiny, like the people that actually live there.
Yeah,
it's a tiny county, and this is all tourism driven.
Wow.
Like this is not just. This wasn't on an accident. This is tens of thousands of people that have flocked and just gotten in tight, confined spaces. No mask wearing, no social distancing, buck wild.
Mercy.
Yeah. But the people that live there, that's how they make a. See, that's sort of the catch-22. The people that live there, that's how they make a living.
Yeah.
Is catering to the tourist trade. So, yeah.
What is touristy? Like, what is the attraction there?
Oh, there's a theme park. Dolly Parton has a theme park there. Dollywood.
That's where Dollywood is. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Dollywood and Gatlinburg, and I guess they're dinner.
Gatlinburg. That's where I went on. That I didn't catch it. You say so. You're talking about Gatlinburg. That's where I went on honeymoon. My honeymoon.
Gatlinburg, Sevierville. That's all within Sevier County.
Okay, like Pigeon Forge.
All that. Yep.
Oh, I love that area. I love it.
I love that part of Tennessee. I just don't do the tourist trap.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't
mind it. We got one of those, those cabins you can get, you rent for a weekend.
Yeah, I'm all about getting a cabin.
We listened to Ender's Game, but it was one of the. Have you read the Ender's Game series? Ender's Game?
No.
Oh man, it's such a good sci-fi book series. Orson Scott Card. He is a Mormon, and so, anyways, it's fascinating little story. But yeah,
life after COVID.
Life after COVID. Do you
Whenever
believe
that could be?
No, I don't know when it will be, but it will be. And my question is how do we mimic Christ? How are we Christ-like? How am I? Make it I statements.
Sure.
How should I be Christ-like in a post-COVID world, and yet still you're the one who brought up the idea of, well, we still need to go back and divine. We need to see what we did, what we got wrong, what we got right.
Yeah.
So I posted a
one of these days.
well, how do you put it? You usually say we hopefully after all this we will be able to
look back, right? Like hindsight, like the phrase hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
In the thick of it, passions rage and people get polarized and people assume positions that are often intractable.
Yeah.
Like
we get entrenched.
We get entrenched.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get perspective when you're there. So my hope is like, well, after some time goes down the path, we can all look back with a little bit of 2020 hindsight and go, well, that worked, that didn't work, that was helpful, that wasn't, with enough openness to be able to have a discussion and learn from it.
Okay. And so what I think I need to prepare for that, Josh, and I think you and folks like you, friends of mine and family, I need to lean on them for help, as I'm wary that I won't be Christ-like in my look back. As you know, it's so I got accused yesterday by a family member of being divisive, and I don't want to be divisive. I'm not trying not to be, like I'm not, in the sense that like I'm not going out of my way not to be divisive, because I really don't know what is divisive and what isn't, in the long run.
That it's kind of a loaded term, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, okay, we can start with it's the opposite of unifying.
It's the opposite of unifying, but should we? Is it necessary? Well, Christ wasn't always.
Is unity always the goal?
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the flip side, right? Like,
yeah.
If we're talking about the role of truth in a discussion, or truth inside of culture, the concept of truth is both unifying and divisive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sometimes I like to. I should practice a martial art, but I don't. But if I did,
judo, right?
Judo would probably be right up, because I tend to want to go with the motion of the force, right? Like, well, you're being divisive, and it's like, yes, I am. Let's talk about that. Why am I being divisive? How am I being divisive? What's the goal of my divisiveness?
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure that being divisive in and of itself is bad.
So you say divisive. Okay.
Divisive?
I say divisive, but divisive?
Divisive? I don't.
Either way.
It's been a long day.
But speaking of divisive, Tammy Van Kirk Morissette, says, apparently if you're white, then anything you say is divisive or wrong. Well, I think that's for some people. I think there are a lot of LA says love the shirt, Judah. Thank you.
Love me some Bill Murray.
Little Bill Murray action. I needed to feel chilled today. Like you, it was kind of a hectic day. But there it isn't. Tammy, I would encourage you. I know it's tongue in cheek, right? It's a little funny. It's a little sad because there are people like that. In a lot of cases, you're right. So I need to put that up there. She says, in a lot of cases nowadays. It is true. And
there's something to be said for the white male patriarchal voice has been sufficiently discounted. And I don't know. There's, again, moving with the movement of that force, I go, and there's probably some good reasons.
Right.
We did. White folks did a spectacular job of keeping a lot of people away from coming to the table and hearing a multitude of perspectives about issues. So, are we getting a little bit of our own medicine? Sure, that's fine. At least that's the take I'm going to take today for now.
I agree with you. And like there is no accusation without a tad bit of guilt, right? Like not necessarily guilt. I had a friend once that said, if you feel guilty, you are to yourself. Like there is something incongruent in yourself. Now, you may not be guilty in the eyes of the world and God or other people, but to yourself, there is something that is not congruent there. And so to whatever standard that is there, you're there is something off if you feel guilty. See, so that's not to say you need to make it right with whoever it means you need to decide. You have to figure out. You need to sit with that guilt and figure out where is that coming from.
Yeah,
what's going on there, And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with if people saying you're feeding into the patriarchy or whatever. I don't necessarily. I don't see the patriarchy the same as many people. I may even be dismissive of it at
it's
times.
A verb. It's a word.
It's a
that
word
people use to try to describe a complex phenomenon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Am I a male?
It means different things to different people.
Yeah.
And yeah,
That's okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's the posture. I want to be able to have, and that's, I mean, to me, that is the reason for me getting on with you. And I got on yesterday with Michael and with my old youth pastor a couple days ago, John Quinlan. And my goal is to start talking these things out, because it doesn't do me any good to sit in my own head and just repost and post, I want to talk about it.
So I'm curious, you have a relative that said you're being divisive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm rolling back to, I think, the overarching theme of life after COVID.
Yeah.
Like, how do those two things collide? I'm curious.
Well, here's the thing. It's difficult because I have loved ones. I have my grandfather and my grandma and grandpa, Nani and Tata. They live in Albuquerque, and Albuquerque's still pretty shut down. And they're still they are convinced that I don't think they've even been out of their house. I don't think they've been out of their house since March. Maybe for a walk outside. Maybe.
Yeah.
They're getting on in age. My dad's 73. They've got so my mom is in her late 60s. So they're in their mid to late 80s, and I just I don't know how long this is going to go on, and I don't want to be divisive, but I do want to. What is the verse? Something about truth. Cut truth, cut, or what is it? Discern truth. I want to discern truth.
Okay.
And sometimes that means, to me, and I think this is why I get labeled as a contrarian, a cocksure contrarian cowboy.
Cocksure contrarian cowboy.
I got to make the T-shirt. I will. It's coming. Is because it is a strong conviction of mine that truth does not lie in the comfortable. And so in the same way that I need to be uncomfortable with, true things that are said to me, I think that other people, it's okay. It is okay for people to be uncomfortable because the truth is typically not very comfortable. And so I'm okay with pushing the limits. I was telling Michael yesterday.
Contrarian. Cocksure contrarian cowboy.
Is that the contrarian? Is there is?
I want to beg the question about is
that contrarian?
Is being uncomfortable a criterion of truth?
Okay. Well,
Uh,
this is
and because I guess sometimes what I wonder is if you believe that that's a truth, you're comfortable. By the way, you're comfortable with the fact that it's an uncomfortable experience.
I'm not comfortable with that, obviously, because people throw it in my face all the time.
Well,
Um,
that's a consequence of being
yes. Well,
comfortable.
that's
But
where uncomfortability comes from, is
but
consequences.
won't that always lead us to like, well, the truth has just got to really get you all riled up.
That could be.
I I don't know.
No, but
Just
not
throwing that out
riled
there
up.
for
So
fun.
here is, let me lay out the
Uncomfortable.
logic. Let me lay out the logic, okay?
Sure.
As humans, we are intensely narcissistic, and there is a constant drive to bring things to status quo and comfortability. And
Okay.
so, truth, reality, often cuts against those tendencies in us, because because we do not live in a world that revolves around us, you know, and because we live with other people and
Hmm.
other systems and other in an ecosystem of different lives, it is impossible for us to be constantly comfortable. If we are comfortable, some things may be wrong. And
It could
it could,
be.
I threw the maybe in there, right? But
It could be.
if we're comfortable, something is wrong?
Well, that happens. I mean,
What if it's like equal? Comfortable, something's wrong.
yeah. I,
You can't, you
I,
don't like that.
I'm not going to endorse that statement.
Well, okay, well, I know
That's
you.
it's like the people that I work with that are like everything's going well, which means it's gonna go fall apart here. Sort so they get paranoid and they anticipate
No.
they set themselves up in a situation where it's a self fulfilling prophecy, and here we go.
Well, I can
Um,
see you're not comfortable with that. But
I,
what are the premises against that? Where am I
I
wrong?
I don't know if you're wrong or not. I'm just saying that I'm not quite sure that my felt sense of comfort is a truth criterion.
No, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying that a sense of comfort is a not a truth
The
criterion.
criterion for
It's
anti-truth, right?
yes, yes,
If I feel okay about it, it's probably not true.
yeah. Well, okay. I mean, in a fallen world, don't you think there's always a modicum of
I think
of
it's one possibility of many.
dissonance between comfort and truth?
Well, there could be.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily think so. Um, or put it a different way, I'm not aware of any evidence that would indicate that.
Well, yeah. I'm trying to think of scripture to support myself here, but I'm not coming up with anything. This would be a
Yeah,
good.
the scriptures are there's a lot of comfort that comes with truth in scripture.
Give me one. Like, what do you mean? Well, maybe we should define comfort.
We could,
How do you
or
define comfort?
well, in the sense that we're using it, a sense, a bit of ease or peace, calm. And I think sometimes that can be confused with complacency,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, we can be experiencing a sense of ease, a sense of peace, a sense of calm, and be utterly delusional.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the struggle. I guess I'm
Mm.
not sure if I want to put all my eggs in that basket
Well, I guess
as far as like determining what's true and what's not.
I see that.
It's
I define comfort a
it's
little
like
differently.
it sounds like emotional. It's like an epistemological form of emotional thinking.
Yeah,
I, I don't
that's
know.
problematic.
Well, let's draw it back for a second, if you don't mind. Like pr- practically, what's going on that's divisive or being seen as divisive in the context of a journey towards life after COVID, or maybe I would even throw out there life with COVID. And we could just say COVID is any large scale communicable disease, or
Okay.
virus in this case. Not disease, but virus.
Well, I see the difficulty is that it has become a political football of sorts.
Well, of course. It's
Yeah,
an election year.
I know, and so it's hard to divorce my it's hard to divorce my positions and my search for truth from my label as a Trump supporter.
Okay.
So anything really I say that lines up, like I'm always like a little frustrated when Trump comes out strongly for one thing or another because it's like, well, I'm not going to be able to talk about that anymore, you know. And not that I don't, obviously, but because I'm a contrarian Cocksure Cowboy.
A cowboy.
Uh, but it's a landmine out there, you know. Well, it's a minefield of landmines, and and it gets difficult when family members are of a different ilk, per se.
A different political persuasion.
Yes.
Am I hearing
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Their
So
sympathies and loyalties are not aligned with yours. Okay.
right.
I follow you.
So in that case, then it's like then it becomes this struggle between, well, how much am I honest and how much do I want to make things comfortable? How, you know,
Or inoffensive, maybe.
yeah.
Right?
Well,
Like I
to
don't want
me,
to say
see, to
something
me,
that
that's when I
offends
say
or
comfortable, I mean a lack of pain. I don't necessarily mean peace.
okay.
Peace, shalom,
Okay, a lack of pain.
peace. I put that on a different category. To me, comfort is
So
just
shalom being a positive experience, like it's a more positive experience
it's a
as
more
opposed
righteous
to a
experience,
lack of pain.
whereas a lack of pain and a presence of pleasure is comfort. You know, not I'm not
Okay.
saying it's like, and then you know you take comfort too far and that's indulgence, but I'm just talking about comfort. You know, where it's you
Okay.
have a little pleasure, you have a lack of pain, right? So
I got you.
I would like to be in that position, obviously, with the people I love. And then, but then my search for truth sort of gets in the way of that. So, I guess the thing that comes to my mind as I was super encouraged by my youth pastor, Mr. Quinlan, John, to that what life comes down to is being like Jesus. And so how can I be like Jesus and be like Judah at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
That's my struggle right now. Cuz Judah's not very Jesus like.
Well, I mean, sometimes, yeah, it's really easy to find ourselves in a position where you're like, well, Jesus would occasionally call people brood of vipers and flip over tables,
That's true. That is true.
versus like really challenging the status quo in a way that was rather artful, and sometimes subtle, and requires a level of discernment and, dare I even say, foresight that we often lack. Like the woman at the well, the woman caught in adultery in John 8. I mean, these are incidents where Jesus has got the inside scoop.
I don't have the insight. Well,
I don't. I mean,
I don't have
some,
his. I don't have his insight.
right. Like
I,
I've never sat down. I never went to the Coke machine and she was like, "Oh, I see you're getting a Coke today," and I'm like, like, "Why aren't you here with your husband?" She's like, "I don't have a husband." I'm like, "But you've had 5." That's never happened.
well, I don't know that that's never happened.
Well, not to that degree, but
No, but there are things that we can discern, and not. I don't know necessarily that he just discerned it through the Spirit. He may have seen something that you or I could have picked up on, you know.
Sure, I don't know.
So I mean, I leave open the possibility that,
But going back to how can we
okay,
be more like Jesus?
because it's hard for me. I do believe that we're going to look back. I mean, NPR, they've never been accused of being a conservative think piece for Trump, right? They have said
I've never been called a conservative think piece for anything.
anything.
I mean, they're now. I think on a good day they're sometimes centrist, but
Okay, yeah, I agree. But so they said mounting evidence suggests that COVID is not as deadly as thought. Did the experts fail again? And they go through and show some
Really?
compelling evidence. They compare it to the WMD days of
Bush?
Bush. Yeah.
Really,
Yes.
I'll have to read that. That's an interesting comparison.
It's a very interesting read. It
So,
talks about like the hubris of wait for it, politics, leaders.
Was
What?
it the hubris? Was it the hubris of politics, or was it the hubris of scientists?
Well,
I'm
the
just throwing that one
hubris
out there.
of leaders. And I think the problem now is that we have scientists that are politicians.
You do,
Huh?
other than Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, I think
Is there
science.
somebody in the Trump administration that's really a scientist? I would be fascinated to hear more about this. Tell me more, Judah.
I am no expert. I
Yeah.
am but a humble worm.
I am just a humble servant.
I
A
don't.
mere laborer in the field.
I'm a mere reposter of the Facebook posts.
Oh,
I do listen. I do have some experience with COVID, and I do.
yes,
I have watched
some lived
carefully and
experience.
read. I have some lived experience and watched.
Yeah.
I've observed it go through my my office
Yeah.
super quickly. And I've talked a lot about it with people, and some very knowledgeable people. I've talked about I have this good friend. I won't say his name because he doesn't need to be said. But he's his dad was a Chicago cop, and he's been in the political machine for a long time.
Oh, in Chicagoland.
In Chicago, yeah.
Yeah.
So this guy has been around. He's in his 60s, and
He knows how
he's-
real politics gets done.
yeah. He's seen a lot, and he was revealing some things to me. I made a foolish bet with him. I was in Michigan, and during the primaries, I said, I think Bernie Sanders is going to win this one, man. I have a sneaking suspicion. He's like, because I said like there's a mounting. I laid out my case. He's like that SH doesn't matter, man. He's like, it's already a foregone conclusion. The ballots have already been filled out. I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. And I made a bet with him, and it was like landslide for Biden. He came back. He's like, yeah, that's all right, man. You're still wet behind the ears.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Rolling back to truth. What's the role of truth here as it relates to COVID? Like, what's the function? Let me put it in that.
I mean,
What does it do?
I believe that it is important for me and my family and how we interact in the world to understand what the reality of the virus is.
Sure.
I actually, contrary to popular belief, I actually tend more towards the scaredy cat end of it, whereas my wife, who she moonlights as a nurse, has been far more circumspect and far more just kind of. She just keeps telling me, "Listen, everybody's gonna get it eventually. You know, it's worse than the flu, but it's a lot like the flu."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's worse than the
and
flu, but probably won't kill you.
yeah, well, and but I'm just talking about in terms of like ways to stop it. There are none. There just are none. You know, unless you just
Other than avoid people, right?
well for the rest of your life.
That and therein lies, and I think that's the thing. Like avoiding people isn't necessarily a truth. Like avoiding
Yeah,
people is a behavior.
yeah,
Now if we believe that that's going to keep us from potentially getting it, well, that is not true.
yes,
It 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 probably will keep you from getting it, but it won't absolutely keep you from getting it. And I guess that's my struggle. Like, where is there room for probabilities, like probabilistic?
excuse me.
And I
It's just a minute. Let me.
put the smack down on it. What are you doing
What?
right there?
Not right now.
She's just gonna play. She's not gonna.
Okay. What was that? Sorry, some
Where is there
interruptions.
room for like ignorance? Like we just don't know, or where is there room for probabilistic truth? Because generally, I think when we say truth, we think of black and white, right, wrong, accurate, inaccurate,
Right.
as opposed to like there's some chances that
Or there's some consensus, or
there's some
yeah,
yeah. I mean, like we started off with a rather conservative, like we think this will kill you,
yeah, yeah,
and let's be honest, there are consequences to those types of pronouncements. Like I've got a godson of mine. Yeah, that brother ain't coming out of his house.
wow. I have a client that has barely come out of his house.
I
His
mean, we're
apartment.
talking straight up agoraphobia. Like I ain't coming out. Like
Well, I mean, when on top of the COVID, you know, in Chicago are some violent, the possibility of some violence in the protests and the
sure,
what have
yeah.
you. So it's a scary world. It has become quite a scary world outside
It's
of your
always
door.
been a scary world.
Well, that was my point. I posted on somebody's
We go through
post today.
cycles of really scary and like, really scary.
What? I asked him. I said, "Have you ever texted while you've driven?" And so you just put, you know, people's lives at risk.
I had a guy or gal, I don't know who it was, like today, pass me on the shoulder of the highway, right in front of me.
He was wearing a mask, though. I hope.
Yeah, I have. Oh, he or she was going so fast, I could
Couldn't
not tell.
see. Wow.
Couldn't. It was that fast. So yeah, anytime you step out of the door, there's a risk.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Now there is there's the argument, though, the validity of the argument. There is some validity to the argument that, well, now we have an added risk that people can discern, and
there is.
I have discerned for myself, and I've discerned that. Well, now it's not a risk for me. Sorry, I have the antibodies, but
Yeah.
but before I was like, I'm willing to get it. It's okay. I have asthma. You know, I have mild asthma, and I don't have any health insurance, so I was taking a huge risk. In my mind, I was a little scared about it, but
Sure.
not enough to
Absolutely.
keep me from going to work, and not enough to make me
Right.
wear a mask.
But it's always the question of like cost benefit, right? Like
Yeah,
I can lessen my risk by staying home and figuring out what I'm going to do from there, or I take the risk of going
yeah,
to work
yeah.
and feeding my kids.
Yeah.
That what we call that is life.
Yeah. Now,
I don't know. It's just me.
but here's the thing. I think being a cocksure contrarian cowboy helped me discern that in certain ways, and I was able to feed my family, and so was my boss and the people I worked with. Now, as COVID subsides, if it does,
As it subsides in places.
After November 3rd, right? It's going to subside one way or another.
Sure, it'll just utterly disappear, and it'll be in the history books.
Especially if Biden wins, it'll surely subside. But and he may win at this point. So the question is, is it possible? Let's cut it down. Here's my question for you, Captain Blackburn. Can I be a cocksure contrarian cowboy and be Christ-like?
Well, Judah. Well, can you? I'm just going to ask you this question. I'm going to answer your question with a question.
Okay.
Can you be a contrarian? No, let's say it again.
Cocksure contrarian cowboy.
Cocksure contrarian cowboy and be humble.
I think they're mutually exclusive.
And that's the answer to your question.
Wait a minute. Was Christ always humble?
Yes.
He was?
Yeah.
Then maybe I can.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. If you're going to pose the question like that, humility is the path.
You're right. You're not wrong.
And it's a rocky path.
Yeah.
It's an uphill path.
Yeah.
However, it is the one that's been marked out.
Agreed. And the thing is I've been called a contrarian I've been called a contrarian cocksure
Cowboy.
But no, cocksure contrarian. I added the cowboy.
Added cowboy.
Because America.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So my kids were running around singing that today. I'm like, when did you learn that? And they're like,
from you.
Cartoons. No, not me.
From cartoons.
Yeah, I thought they would seen I thought they'd got it from some what was that? Trey and it was the guys who did South Park. They did that movie with the puppets. What was that called?
Probably
something.
Yeah.
What was it called? I can't remember. What? So my kids got it from Teen Titans Go. My wife's over here. So there's Josh says hi. You gotta come over here now. We gotta even. All right, we gotta.
Cameo
hi.
I can't hear you, but hello.
He says hi. He says hi. Okay. So they got it from Teen Titans Go, but so it comes down to this. I cannot be a cocksure contrarian cowboy and be Christ-like. I don't think, but that's actually, I don't mourn at all for that. I don't want to be cocksure contrarian cowboy.
Yeah.
And that was more of a label that was put on me. I want to be humble. And the problem is the cocksure contrarian cowboy comes out of me or is perceived. And I am not, Your Honor, I am not, what do you call it? Acquiescing to that label.
Sure.
I do not acquiesce to that label. I do not admit to being a contrarian cocksure cowboy. I know that I am perceived as one. And obviously I am not being humble if I am I'm not always being humble if I'm being perceived as a cocksure country and cowboy.
Maybe. I mean, I guess it's the hard thing. I mean, I don't think it's impossible to be humble and to hold fast to a claim that something is true. But
Yeah.
I wonder if it's kind of falls back sometimes on a wise thing my mother told me as I was growing up, and I only really began to appreciate as I got really older. Was Joshua?
Okay.
It's not what you say; it's how you say it.
Okay. Well, I've gotta read you something that this is where this comes in. This is where this comes in. My wonderful John he's a humble man. He will never be called a cocksure country. He said this. If somebody once said, if you're right, but you're wrong in the way that you're right, then you're wrong even if you're right.
Yes, in a sense, yes, absolutely.
Jesus says, I'm meek and lowly in heart. So there you go. Meek and lowly in heart. Though we have been discussing, and I think we discussed it, about how meekness that doesn't mean you're a mouse. It doesn't mean you're... it means that you have a huge gun, but you never use it. Or you don't use it when you really could.
On occasion, again.
You could blow somebody away.
That's the difficulty of narrative in Scripture.
Okay, say more about that.
Well, I mean, the Gospels give us the the story of the words and deeds of the Lord. Mm-hmm. But the description of the fact that he occasionally would call Pharisees brood of vipers, or whitewashed tombs, and kick over tables in the temple doesn't necessarily sanction my use of aggression or insults all the time.
Yeah,
it's not a license to insult people and do certain things.
Exactly.
That's the hard part of narrative is they're not necessarily prescriptive, right? They're not clear-cut rules about do this, don't do that.
Right. Narrative is often descriptive, not prescriptive. It is a observation rather than a proclamation of what we should do.
But then, obviously, Jesus says some really hard things that are very prescriptive. Love your enemies. And you're like, oh, come on. Can you pick something easier?
Can I just love my adversaries? Do I have to love my enemies?
I'm all about go the extra mile. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll walk an extra mile.
Yeah.
You mean I have to love the people that hate me and want to hurt me? That betray me?
Do you have enemies,
make me feel unsafe?
Joshua, do you have enemies?
I was thinking about that today. Really? Ironically, yes. I don't know. I don't know. There are a handful of people in my life that I think I would put under the category of estranged.
But an enemy, love your enemies means love the people that you want to kill. I mean,
or who want to kill you.
Yeah, but we can't really discern that as well, right? Like, I think it's more about like...
That's the hard part. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
Are there people that you would not necessarily kill, but that you'd like to
punish? Destroy?
Banish to the, negative zone?
No.
No?
No.
Because
even the people that rub me wrong, I recognize that there's more going on there that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the fact that they rub me in a way that brings to light the fact that I got a lot of work to do. So in that way, they're always a gift, right? Yeah. I mean, from that perspective, I'm like,
Yes, true.
He's still working on me. Yeah. So that's yeah.
Oh, and that's why I love your response. Yes, I am racist, and I'm trying to work
I
on it.
if anyone,
I'm
I'm
working on it.
serious.
I'm working on it.
I've looked in some of the dark crevices of my soul, and there is stuff there that scares even me. And so if someone says you're a racist, I go, you know what, you're right. If I'm honest, like if and I think people that say that they're not are liars, but that's just me. Whatever. If they really had a transcript for every random thought that flowed out of their hearts and they were able to read it back, they'd blush.
Oh, blush. They'd run. I'd
Well,
run.
at
I'd
best,
run.
they'd blush. You know, on a a little bit.
The
So
best of them. The best of them would blush. For
yeah, come on. You know, like
sure. Yeah.
there's it's a complex problem. Um, but I guess my struggle is part of it is just owning up to like, and I'm part of that problem. Like there is wickedness in me, and you know the line of good and evil is drawn right down smack through the heart of every man and woman on the planet, and anyone else of any gender combination so
Yeah.
chosen.
But
It's there.
how do we save the world? Well, we start with ourselves. Yeah.
If you want to change the world, change yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is, I'm learning more and more that to avoid hell, and I'm not talking about devil's fiery hell post death. I'm talking about if we want to avoid hell on earth, if we want to avoid the hell that is waiting for us around the corner tomorrow, then we have to be like Christ. And that isn't even a moralistic thing. That's just something. That's just a truism. I have come to believe that's just a truism that the more we become like Christ, the more we help the people around us and ourselves, and they help, and it's just exponentially better for everybody around us, right?
Yes. I think the struggle, and so back to ironic things that I think about driving around in my truck.
Okay.
That providentially come up in conversation with you.
What kind of truck? I need to picture it.
I've got a green 1994 Ford F-150.
Ooh, I like it. Okay.
It's boxy. It's loud. It's somewhat loud. It's
okay.
I've got the little windows that turn in so I can actually drive around sometimes.
I love
So,
it. Okay. So what are you thinking? You're driving.
Well, just like we just need to be more like Christ.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm with you. I agree with that statement. But what I was thinking about in very similar terms, because I've heard, sometimes I think when we have moral conversations, a lot of times we get stuck on definition.
Oh yeah.
Most of the time because we're trying to figure out a way to weasel out. Like, so what does it mean to be faithful?
My dad asked me the same thing last Sunday because I was like, "We need to be faithful." He's like, "What does that mean?"
What does that mean?
I'll get back to you.
I think the more important question isn't what does it mean to be faithful, or what does it mean to be Christ-like, but how?
Yeah.
Like how? How do we be faithful? How do we become more like Christ? Because when we talk about what and why, we can get really stuck in our heads. We can really just get in the world of words and concepts, and never really get down to brass tacks of like, how do I even become like Jesus?
I was just talking to somebody last night. You just need. Somebody said you just need more faith, and both of us are like, what does that mean?
What does that? Yeah, what does that mean?
What does that mean? And something came to me this morning. Let me see if I can conjure it back up. Okay. It's the yet. So it was a small word. It's yet.
Mm-hmm.
So the yet in the phrase we don't know the future, yet we act like we do. And the yet is the faith. That's what came to me in the shower this morning.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
that's-
I don't know how valid it is, but that's what came to me in the shower this morning. It's like we don't know the future. We cannot know the future, yet we have to act as if we do.
Well,
Or we don't know reality. Let's change it. We don't know reality, yet we have to act as if we do.
we're always acting on some basis of yeah.
A truth.
We're going to, yeah.
I'm changing it. Truth.
Truth.
Acting as if we know the truth, and because we have prescription.
There
you know?
is. Yeah. We do have to live it out.
Faith is hard, and I think what came to me as far as faithfulness is two things. One, that day when my dad, he put it to me. He's like, "Well, what is faithfulness?" I was like, "Oh." One thing that came to my mind is that when I'm faithful to my wife, I'm not faithful out of duty per se. I'm faithful out of a relationship, right? Like it's a thing that I'm active in. It's not something that I just sign and it's done. It's a continual relational thing that is not just me. It's interactive. And then the second. Okay, go ahead. What is your response to that? Okay, yes. And then the second thing that came to me more recently as I'm talking to John was that it's also faithfulness has in large part has to do with a real interaction with God. You have to believe in the Holy Spirit and the still small voice that guides us. Otherwise, faithfulness is weird. It's more like the Pharisees. The Pharisees were faithful,
Yes. Words. This is how words get us in jam sometimes. Like, are they dutiful, faithful? Are they,
I know. The English language fails us.
Well, I think ultimately language, in some senses, will always fail us, but so be it. But just like you're saying, and yet we have to use it.
Yeah.
It's extremely helpful. The yet. It's
and there's there's a faith in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can have a discussion with you, talk about sensitive subjects, and yet not feel like you're gonna just, hey, who's that?
This is Augustine.
Hey, Augustine. Wow, wonderful name.
She's shy.
I'm the last sister.
You're the last of the sister, yes.
The last of the sisters.
Well,
hello there, Augustine. Jenna, come here.
It's show your kid time.
I have a last of the sisters too.
Augustine, this is the last. This is Jenna, the last of the sisters.
Say hi, Genevieve.
Hi, Genevieve. The patron saint of Paris.
Genevieve? I thought she was wearing something.
No, your daughter is Genevieve.
Yeah. He said you're the last patron. What?
Patron saint of Paris.
Patron saint of Paris.
If I remember correctly. That's other St. Denis, but anyway.
Wow. Okay, that's all I wanted. Love you. Anyhow, it's time to go to bed. Time has run out. Our little
clock is run down. It's about the ding.
Our clock is run down.
The egg timer. I
do enjoy working this stuff out with you, Josh, and obviously it's not. We don't come together to. Okay, got a bow on that.
Yeah.
Move on.
No. We're gonna wrestle with it for an hour and then go
and then go wrestle some more, right?
Yeah.
I do.
Because this is not a show.
No, it's not. Yeah, this isn't even a show. Do you know where that comes from?
I have no idea. You should enlighten me.
Have you ever heard of Philip DeFranco?
No,
Oh, well then it will make sense to you. But
I'm enlightened.
there's a millennial. He's a newscaster for the millennials. He started on YouTube. Very humor based. I would say carnal based.
Crass.
Crass. Yeah.
Yeah. Vulgar.
But his name is Philly D. Philip DeFranco. He would always start his news show. This is a news show. That's what he would say. But it was kind of, this is a news show. And I always thought, I got in an argument. That's stupid. Not argument, but like a, what? No. Discussion with my wife saying, where'd she go? She'd laugh at me. I thought he was saying, this isn't even a show. But he was saying, this is a news show.
This is a news show.
And the whole time I thought he was saying, this isn't even a show. And I loved that. I was like, yeah, man.
Take it.
Yeah, it's not even a show. So I called my podcast this not a show. So
I'll have to look that up just to acquaint myself with.
Well, you'll have to
Comfortability.
look at his old ones because I don't think he has that intro anymore. It was like the dun 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 dun, and he had like the monkey come up. It was the old way he used to do. Now it's very like he has millions of views now. He's a legitimate
He has a staff.
Yeah. Oh, huge staff. Yeah.
he has people.
Yeah. Well, buddy, it's been great to discuss this and talk this out. But I to me, you illuminated the real purpose of these podcasts. To me, is curiosity, man. I just want to work some of this stuff out and indulge my curiosity with people that I love and I'm comfortable with,
Always a pleasure to get curious.
Hey, let's get curious. That's how I should say it. Let's get curious.
Let's get curious. Curiouser, yeah. Curiouser and curiouser.
Yeah, well, have any final thoughts, or you probably got to go put the kids to bed like I do?
No, they're it's summertime. They stay up late.
Oh, how late? How late? Hey, how late do your kids? Okay, no, you finish up a thought.
9:30, 9:45, 10. It flows.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it flows. And then my oldest, she's 15. Who knows when she goes to bed? Yeah, but she's honestly one of the first people to get up in the morning. So she's
early to bed, early to rise.
Late to bed, early to rise for her. So I can't get onto her too much because she's rather diligent and dutiful and firstborn, kind of like that.
Thank you for listening, Tammy. Really appreciate
Tammy.
Yeah, appreciate you tuning in to LA and whoever else. I saw a few other people leaving little thumbs ups. Appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Come back next week. We'll be here Wednesdays, typically Wednesdays. If you don't catch us on a Wednesday, catch us on a Thursday. And these are always archived on YouTube. If you look up Notashow, you will find my ugly face up in, you'll see that little logo. Just look for that. I call that the pigeon. That's the pigeon. It's like a pigeon peering in.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. You've got your beak. You got your beak out there from that perspective. Yeah.
It's the curious. Like, what's in there?
What's going on? What are y'all doing?
What's going on? What happened? All right, brother. Well, I will. We'll end the show, the Not a Show here, and the podcast, the video the vodcast.
The vodcast.
The vodcast. And so I appreciate you being on, man, and appreciate people watching, and we'll call it a night.
So y'all have a great night. Good to see you, Judah.
You too, brother. I need to put an outro.